My father, my sister, my brother. I'm thinking this because you really got me. So convicted in the truth. I'm sure my motives are all pure. There's no one, no day, no where, no way. It ain't happening. Forget it. Stop looking. The service is over.
So you've been itching for this for a long time?
I mean, I remember the first time I came here, you said I have to come back and we gotta expand on our first kind of debate. So I was like, sure, why not?
Okay.
Wasn't a formal debate.
You ready?
Oh, absolutely.
Move up to the mic. Yep.
Five, four, three, two.
Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a good show planned for you today, but first, the forecast from our intellectualradio.com weather center. Today, mostly sunny, nice, high 72 degrees. Tonight, clear, low 60 degrees. Haven't heard that degrees in a long time. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, pleasant, warm, high 76 degrees. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, breezy, a chance of a shower and thunderstorms in spotted areas late. Low 66 degrees. Wednesday, a thunderstorm in spots in the AM. High 75 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, pleasant, and cool. High 70 degrees. And Friday, a chance of a shower and thunderstorms. High 73 degrees. The weekend looks like this. Saturday, cloudy with a chance of a shower and thunderstorm, but cool though. High 66 degrees. Sunday, partly sunny and warm. High 83 degrees. The Drive at 5 is also part of the Monday night new lineup with Becoming Dateable at 11 a.m. Battle Talk Radio at noon. One Sister to Another at 4 p.m. Warrior Talk Radio at 6 p.m. New Black Leadership Coalition at 7 p.m. The Great Entrepreneurs at 8 p.m. and the Chronicles of Ram at 9 p.m. The Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5, only on intellectualradio.com. Tonight, my guest is a political author, essayist, libertarian, writer, and philosopher. Please give a drive at 5 welcome back to Germinal Van. Welcome back to the Drive.
Thank you, Roman. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station an update since the last time you were on the Drive.
Well, the last time I was on the Drive, it was, 2 months ago, I believe?
Yes.
And in between, progress has been made. I kept writing, and today I came on the show to present a new book that is entitled The Problem of Egalitarianism, a philosophical examination on the precursor of inequality. So I came to discuss about the book and also bring a new alternative to the community to try to think otherwise than what has been already projected in the collective mind.
Explain your new book to us.
So, as the title stated itself, The Problem of Egalitarianism, a philosophical examination on the precursor of inequality. So, the whole point of the book is to say that in seeking equality, in seeking to make things that are naturally unequal, so in seeking to equalize things that are naturally unequal, we actually create more inequality. And in the book, I specifically develop a theory called measuring the opportunity by the outcome theory. That theory suggests that based on what the outcome will be or should be, you are basically allocating opportunities according to that outcome you're seeking. And that theory basically decries the fact that we plan on a long-term basis trying to control factors that are not controllable by human ability, regardless of the technological, the logistical assets that human beings have developed over time. There's still some factors that we cannot control, no matter no matter the power we have to develop things. For example, we definitely don't know when we're gonna die unless you're on death row. Then you know the day you're gonna die. But for people who are not on death row, no one knows the day they're gonna pass away. So if you don't know the day you're gonna pass away, how can you determine in 30, 40, or 50 years what things will be or should be according to the plans you made? Yes, we do have plans, all of us, but things don't always work accordingly to the way we thought it would. So in the book, I basically say that it is better to measure the outcome by the opportunity, which means that since you don't know what the outcome will be, you go by the opportunity and try to create more opportunities to advance your condition.
I'm glad you said that because egalitarian is defined as relating to or believing in the principles that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. You have written and quote, society that makes egalitarian its highest and ultimate purpose has resulted in more inequities. Now, the purpose of this book is to explain, your book is to explain the quest of inequity does not serve society on a long-term basis, but on the contrary, widens the inequities that already exist between men. Why, if majority, especially minorities, want equal rights and opportunities, why they should be aware of egalitarian?
So the problem is that we, especially, I'm going to narrow my explanation on our community, the black community, the black civilization as a whole. We have always made the mistake to believe that political power will lead us to economic salvation. And that is not true. And that is even one of the reasons why Barack Obama disappointed a lot of people. They thought that the fact that he was the first black president will create a ton of economic opportunities
but that's the problem.
For all of them.
But that's the problem. A lot of people think that Obama was the first black president, period. But he was the first black president under the Constitution.
Yes.
We had a first black president under the Confederate. So when we go back to history and we constantly dig, you see more black politicians under the Reconstruction Act era. So, continue. I just wanted to clarify.
No, of course. Yeah, no. So basically what I was saying was that, yeah, so we usually make the mistake that the fact of holding political power will lead us to economic salvation. But if you look at all the communities living in the United States, the most prosperous communities are actually not very much involved in politics. And there's a reason for that. The most prosperous minority in the US are, of course, Asians, so East Asia, and Indians from India. If you look at the political body, there may be 2 or 3 Asians who are United Senators or congressmen, because most of them, they rather focus on having economic power, because economic power enables them not only to innovate, but to multiply their wealth and to create more capital for themselves. They're not that many, but if you look at wherever Asians are in the US, they're always among the people who are the less poor when you look at the statistics. I will even give you an example. When you look at...
But if you look at certain countries, such as China or something to that effect, you see certain areas in China is basically poor, and the other ones are prosperous. So how can you disclaim that, okay, giving Asian Americans as a model for African Americans to follow in politics, in which you go to their country, they're the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. And it's the same dynamic here in the United States, but the only exception is we don't live in huts.
Yeah, but you know, inequalities are everywhere in every country, even in every neighborhood. You will see some people that have houses that that you can tell that they're low income, and you have the other neighbor that has a huge house with 2 swimming pools and 5 cars and stuff like that. So even yes, it's everywhere. But the point I'm trying to say is that when you look at the Asian community as a group in the United States, not even in the US, but even in Malaysia, when they settle somewhere, what they're trying to do is to not mingle with politics. What they're trying to do is to develop the resources that are available to them, to innovate and to multiply those resources to create capital. The Lebanese are also operating on the same basis. Where I'm from originally in Ivory Coast, we have a significant population of Lebanese. I mean, there's still a minority group, and they have been in Ivory Coast for a very long time. In Ivory Coast, there was no single Lebanese that held political office, whether it's president of the republic, whether it's prime minister, whether it's the ministerial post, whether it's president of the legislature or even in the judiciary, or whether it's simply mayor. What they always did was to focus on their business and creating more wealth, more capital, and to develop the resources that were available to them.
But it's also a known fact they sell their natural resources to Americans, Asians, Chinese. So, like, there is politics is everywhere.
Yes, of course it is everywhere.
So, what I'm trying to understand, why do you think like egalitarian is bad for blacks?
Not that it is bad for blacks. The intention is good, but the result is bad for us because when you look at, for instance, the social programs that have been created, of course, there are more whites than blacks on welfare. But the notion of
no,
hold on.
You said what again?
I said there are more whites than black on welfare.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, white people are the most in this country. I mean, they represent the majority when it comes to population-wise.
No, I just want to make sure I heard.
No, yeah, of course. Oh, you thought I said that there's more blacks than whites? No, of course not. There are more whites. But what I'm trying to say is that
as on government assistance,
yes,
population-wise, they are decreasing.
No, I know. I'm talking on government assistance. There are more whites than black on welfare. But the concept of welfare was created on the fact that you have, in every society, you have two classes. You have the haves, which means those who have access to resources, to capital, to property, and to wealth. And you have the have-nots, which is the rest of us, which means that we don't have access to resources, to wealth, and all this stuff. So, because the have-nots don't have access to resources, the egalitarians say that if they do not have access to resources, it is the fault of the haves. The haves have taken away from the have-nots. Basically, they stole. So it's the philosophy of Friedrich Engels, the one who wrote the condition of the working class in England, saying that man-made exploitation. The rich are richer because they exploit the poor. So they have not. So basically, not have not, but the egalitarians say that the only way to equalize opportunities so that the have-nots will also have a chance to have access to resources is to use government means to do so. But we have been using government means. Can you tell me how many people were able to leave the welfare state to emancipate themselves? Of course, that case has happened, but is it the majority or is it rare?
Are you asking me a
question? Yeah,
question?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. I would say the answer to your question is simply this. If you're talking about African Americans, the answer is yeah. Have people abused the system? Yes. So is it few and far between? Yes. However, there have been people that's, just go on, they're on government assistance, and they be cut off. However, if you're talking about whites in rural America that's on government assistance, no matter how much money they grow in the income state, they still get government assistance. Or they'll find that loophole in government assistance. So for someone to say that blacks have taken advantage of that, I will disagree. Because blacks have not taken advantage of government assistance. I'm not saying all of them didn't. I'm saying majority, they didn't, because they get cut off by the system immediately. And plus, they give them few and far between. Now, of course, a woman down the street that has $500 worth of government assistance or something like that she needed. Yeah, she got some children and stuff like that. However, when you have another woman in Hicktown somewhere that has $1,000 worth of assistance, especially in Indiana, that they give people $1,000 or something, or even more, and they just blow it. But they want to blame African Americans for abusing the system, in which they are not abusing the system.
Okay, first, I wasn't necessarily talking about African Americans abusing the system. I was asking if most of the people, if the people who are on government assistance are generally emancipated. So you said
I would say
you say hold on.
It could be 50-50.
You say the majority of blacks are emancipated from the welfare state, like basically they're able to leave the welfare state. But when we look at the rate of poverty in the African American community before the 1960s, the rate of poverty was significantly low. It was even below 20%. And that level increased in the 70s. Of course, President Nixon did some things that maintain blacks at a level of poverty, but that's another debate. But the point is, let me finish up. The point is, over the decades, the rate of poverty kept increasing. And when you look at the amount of children being born out of wedlock, in the 60s, it was 22%. That was even before the family unit got destroyed. It was just at 22%. In the late 2000, early 2010, that number reached all the way to 73%. Illegitimate child. Basically, the dad has to leave the house so that the mom is single and she can get welfare benefits. So I'm not saying that some black people did not emancipate themselves from the welfare state. Yes, they did. But is it now the majority of them? Maybe both of us have to do some research about if it's the majority of them who emancipate themselves from the welfare state or not.
What I'm getting at is,
yeah,
the reason that blacks, African Americans, are at the state that they're in is because of government rule, because of government law. Because the law says you cannot get assistance if you have a man living with you during the 60s, 50s, and 60s. That's
it's funny. It's funny because it's people who believe that it's the role of the government. I understand what you're saying. I actually join you here. Because people who believe that, it's the role of the government to equalize opportunities, right? They say it's the role of the government to equalize opportunities so that we can have access to resources.
But that's the form in the Constitution.
And then is that same government that implements laws that say if you have a man in the house, you can get this. Your guy has to leave.
But
so
that's
you can,
why, with your point earlier, which you said, why would you use Asian Americans?
Yeah.
Why blacks wanted to have more say so? And because of those ideologies that the government that was mainly white who tried to oppress African Americans. Now, that goes from the Reconstruction era during the 1800s when when slavery was just over. And that's when you have black political power. Now, it goes back to what you said in your book, in your previous book, Equal Under the Law. You referenced the 14th Amendment under the Constitution of the United States, the 14th Amendment in 1868 to the Constitution of the United States that granted citizenship and equal civil, like during the Civil War, and legal rights to African Americans and slaves who had been emancipated after the American Civil War, including them under the umbrella phrases, all persons born and neutralized in the United States. In your book, you mentioned this suspect classification under the Equal Protection Clause. Can you elaborate on that for us and how it relates to due process? We're talking about equal opportunities for African Americans, the 14th Amendment. That was in your book.
Yeah, but if we talk about, so first of all, there is a huge amalgamation that people do. People have access to resources, but they don't have access to the quality of the resource.
Okay, give us an example.
Public schools and private schools. Not all public schools are bad, but there's some areas in a given region. If you live in a low-income areas and you go to the public school of that area, well, the rate of attrition will be significantly higher than the rate of graduation compared to someone who lives in an area that is pretty much wealthy, although there are public schools there, but even the public schools are doing pretty well. So it really depends. Now,
what they say is due to taxes. They say that people in low wait. They say people in low income communities. This is what they say, meaning public officials. That means the government.
Yeah.
Say African Americans pay low taxes or dodge the tax system. And that's the reason why our schools is performing poorly or have minimum resources. However, that's not the case because there was an increase in a boom in the 90s that they were buying homes, and some African Americans are still buying homes, and those taxes are included in their homes. So my question is, if we're talking about equal, and equal opportunities and equal, how come our books on the south side and the west side of Chicago have like an IQ of a third grader and an eighth grader is reading it, versus you go to Oak Park, they're reading college-bound books in 7th and 8th grade?
well, you gotta ask the government because they're the ones who are.
But is it
portraying
government
themselves-
or leadership?
But who makes the government? Who makes the government?
Actually, the people makes the government.
Exactly.
So,
So the person you should be yelling at are those running the schools, the government schools. That's the point. Because I'm going to give you an example. If we look at Newark, I think we even talked about on the phone before, but Newark
New Jersey.
Yeah, Newark, New Jersey has a mayor. His name is Ras Baraka. He makes over $130,000 a year, and he's been mayor since 2014. And Newark is a predominantly black city, and the rate of poverty is among blacks. So basically, black people are over 40%, according to the U.S. data of 2018. The over 40% of poor. And then you have Hispanics that are around 25, and then you have whites, they're around 16, and then you have Asians, they're even less than 2. So so we talk about Newark. So we live in Newark, we're all black, our mayor is black, the guy's making $130,000 a year since 2014, and we, his people, the majority of us, cannot thrive. Why is that?
Okay, I can counter that with Chicago Public School System. They have a Chicago Public School Board. They're making 60 to 70 to close to 100 grand a year just by meeting once a month or so. You also have some preachers that's making money, and their parishioners are dirt poor of the poor. So what I'm saying is basically we all have problems.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that people allow those problems to happen. It's kind of like Chicago.
Who are the people who allow it?
Let me finish the point.
Who are the people who allow it? That's what I want to know.
You have the right to vote. You have the right to vote them in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why we're stuck with this damn president right now. Because
what
people
the president has to do?
No, what I'm saying is because people. There's some people that think, like, okay, I'm going to just run for public office just for a joke. Just a ha-ha.
But how?
Get my
what
kicks
the
up.
president has to do in the fact that
Because
people
they
in
create
Newark
government
live
policies.
in terrible conditions while they have a black
Because
mayor.
they create government policies that trickles down to local and local government. It trickles down. I give you a prime example. No Child Left Behind.
No Child Left Behind. Exactly. Government program
Right.
that was meant, and they said that by 2014, all the kids need to reach 100% in proficiency. What happens? Those schools who do not will be punished.
Right. And guess what happened?
And what happened?
They
It actually
slowly
deteriorated.
had to close it down.
It actually deteriorated the quality of education for those kids going to government-owned school. So the point is, when it comes to equal opportunity, for those who are going, for instance, if we stay in the realm of education, for those who are going to government-owned school, you have now charter schools. Charter schools are, schools that are government funded but privately managed.
Well, this is what I call charter school, corporate public school. And if you go, and this is what ticks me off. If you're gonna go charter school, right? If you're gonna go like corporate, why are you taking away from Chicago public school money? That's what I'm saying. Now they're unionized.
But here's the thing: government-owned school are
But
failing. Government-owned school.
it.
No, they're failing the kids. At least at charter school, you are basically creating opportunities for yourself to get a better job once you graduate. You are increasing
And that
your
is
chances.
also incorrect.
No, that's not true. You're also increasing your chances to even graduate in the first place.
According to a study recently,
Yeah.
that did a study in comparison to charter schools and Chicago public schools, it was no difference. They're still testing the same. They're still learning the same material. They're reading from the same material. These corporations that they're claiming that they're fueling money into these schools are really not fueling the money into the schools. They're using and borrowing the money from Chicago public schools to fuel their school.
Look at the quality of education. We're not even talking about private school here. I'm saying look at the quality of education between a government-owned school and a charter school. If two kids who just got their high school degree are applying for whatever job, one went to a charter school, the other went to a government-owned school, who do you think will have a higher chance to get hired?
I would say it's a free-for-all. A lot of people would say a person with private school.
No, I said charter and government-owned school, not even private. I don't even take.
Okay, they will probably say charter.
Yeah,
but
that's the
I
point.
disagree with that
Of course
because
you're going to disagree.
it's the same mechanism, if you ask me. Yes, they will probably have few more and far between than an average public school, but actually it's the same.
No.
To me, it is.
Well, you're wrong. Your analysis
But how
is
I'm
substantially
wrong?
wrong.
How I'm wrong if corporations, this is corporation. Now, charter schools, to do some history here, Delhi administration, Arnie Duncan said Chicago Public Schools is failing us. Remember back in the day, Illinois, downstate, Springfield, had control of Chicago Public School. But no ho-ho, Mayor Daley want more control. He want more decisions. He want more this.
It's even funny because you said Springfield had control of the public schools in Chicago. So there are still...
No, I said back in the day.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah, so
they
back
do
in
not,
the day.
not
No,
not
now. But I'm saying like we're talking about back in the day when the state government had control over the public schools in Chicago. So those guys, they're sitting in Springfield and they know exactly what those in Chicago need to advance their condition.
You have local state reps.
But those local state reps are not. The problem is that they're not actually in touch with the reality. Because they're implementing policies without even knowing the exact need of each of the students.
But does Mayor Daley know the realities of it? He does not know. Obviously, he did know.
Because he did not know that he rather let charter school, basically rather let the schools being managed privately, and the government can still fund those schools that are privately managed.
They're not held accountable. Charter schools are not held accountable.
Because they're privately managed. They're privately managed. They're the ones that are actually assisting the kids adequately so that those kids have a better chance to be competitive on the labor market. Don't forget that.
How
Don't
they're
forget
competitive?
that. What do you mean how?
How a child that's in charter school is more competitive than a child from CPS? And I'm like I said before, in a study, they're equal.
They're equal in terms of having access to education, both of them. That's what I'm saying. They have access to education. But now, do they have access to the same quality of education? That's where the difference comes into play.
And I'm willing to bet, according to that study, and I will show you that study.
No problem.
The study basically says it's no difference.
But that is one study. You are basically relying on one study to draw a general conclusion. I think this is fallacious. I don't say that study is lying, but it's not enough to actually draw a general conclusion about it.
How, when you have a study to back up what news reports are saying, to back up what it's kind of like this. Not everyone is going to tell a lie, you know? Yeah. Not everyone is going to say, my child is this, my child is that. Not everyone is going to basically, it will be a different story if you have a group of people saying one thing and a group of people saying another.
The reason why government-owned schools fail is because, first of all, teachers in government-owned school can likely not get fired. Therefore, they have no incentives to do their jobs. They do not care, so the kids
But how can you say teachers do not care?
They do not care because why would you care if you know that you can hold on? No. Why do you care if you know that you cannot lose your job?
Why
would you care if you know that
you're saying,
no matter what you do? No. Why I say generally, it's not every government-owned school. It depends where. If, for instance, you go to a wealthy neighborhood, let's say Arlington, Virginia, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the U.S., if you go to the public schools there, honestly, you're pretty sad too. Although it's a public school, even owned by the government of Arlington, Virginia. You're pretty sad compared to if you go to a government-owned school in Southeast DC. Right? So what I'm saying is that most, generally speaking, government-owned school fail kids because teachers have no incentive. They have no incentive because you cannot fire them. Since you cannot fire them, they're not going to put the work they have to. That's number one. Number two, no matter what happens, if the government has to increase the salary, they will, the government employees. But when you look at private and charter school, the increase of the salary of those teachers are based on the rate of attrition and graduation. If the rate of graduation is significantly higher than the rate of attrition, those teachers are getting a raise. So yes, they're going to be more incentivized to do their jobs and to make sure that those kids graduate, especially on time.
Okay. That's where the statement kind of fails there.
No, it doesn't.
It fails because, number one, they already have incentives. That's why they're already threatening a strike, because they want incentives for special education teachers. That's why, you know, it goes back to what I said before. And I'll say it again and again and again.
Go ahead.
When it comes down to it, you have Chicago Public Schools, you have charter schools. Charter schools takes away. When you make an assumption, that teachers do not care.
It's not an assumption.
Okay, so you're saying a Chicago Public School teacher
do
not care.
No. I'm not talking necessarily about Chicago. I'm talking about government-owned school generally nationwide in the U.S.
But you're also doing a comparison analysis on Virginia. Virginia is like a close-knit family. I can touch Wanda from here.
No, not at all. Do you know how do you know the condition of the people living in the Appalachian Mountains?
No,
like,
but
exactly
it's cold.
living there, it's like they're not even in Virginia. Literally, that's what I'm saying. When you look at the state of Virginia, except for Arlington, Alexandria, Manassas, all like the northern counties, the rest of Virginia is completely detached from those counties.
But the detachment,
so you cannot say that Virginia is like a family. No, it's not.
The detachment comes from back in the day. Your teacher, Miss Johnson, stayed down the street. When your child gets out of line, Miss Johnson, you know, they'll see their teachers in the supermarket. They'll see Miss Johnson, and Miss Johnson can knock on the door. We don't have that kind of community outlet anymore. What I'm saying in Virginia is more closer than what Chicago is, because
that's not
Chicago
true. It's not closer in Virginia at all.
Has a lot of outside teachers that don't belong in the community.
It's not closer because you're comparing Virginia and the city of Chicago. What about public schools? Not even in Springfield. I don't know much about the cities in the state of Illinois, but let's talk about Carbondale, Southern Illinois. Do you know there's the condition of the government-owned schools there? I'm pretty sure you don't. So
it's pretty piss poor.
Yeah, it's pretty piss poor, exactly. While it is said that it is the role of the government to equalize opportunities for the have and the have
leadership, like I said before, it's leadership that trickles down from the top, goes back to the bottom. It is local and state government.
Listen,
if you have
government,
what
government wants is control. What government wants is to retain control over people. If we give you the means to emancipate yourself, how are you going to be controlled again? That's the thing. Government collects taxes every single damn day. And they're still unable to deliver quality. That's why the many parents that are shifting, veering the kids from government-owned school to charter school, and then those who have even a better income can move their kids from charter school to private schools. Everyone want to go. Yeah, everyone want to go to either.
If they have more money, sure, they can make that decision.
Everyone want to go to either
also,
charter schools or private schools because that's where you have the quality of opportunity there. If you go to a private school, you're already increasing your chances.
But that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. You can get a quality education at a Chicago public school. You can get it depends on leadership. Leadership says
but the thing is that you guys put so much faith in the political process, and the political process always ending up
it's the people
disappointing you.
No, it's not the.
That's what it's about.
It's kind of like this. If I'm in a leadership position, and I said, okay, Earl Winfrey, executive producer, said, I do not want Germinal Van in this damn studio no more. Guess what? That's leadership that trickles down to the host that basically I have to follow as host of the Drive at 5.
And that's why it is better to let the market allocate resources so that there is no leadership coming and screwing all the process over.
Everybody has a leadership, no matter an answer to. You can't go free willy-nilly or free willy out there. There are people that put stuff in black and white. There is control. When somebody robs you, who's the number one person you call? You can't say, I'm going to beat the hell out of you because you don't know what the person got. You're going to call the police. So what I'm saying is it depends on the person who is leading that dictates the rule. Look at what's going on with 45 here, which is my next question.
Go ahead.
With 45, because we're almost running out of time.
Yeah.
I say he's a dictator. and the reason why I say he's a dictator is because you look at his disavow towards the rule of law. He doesn't even have an education policy. It's free will. Free willy-nilly. So do you think he's a dictator?
What is a dictator?
To me?
Yeah.
A dictator is basically, I'm going to do what the hell I want to do because I'm in charge. I don't have to follow these rules and regulation because I'm in charge. I can do what the hell I want to do. If I want to shoot you, I can shoot you and I can get away with it.
Okay. A dictator is a political leader that has the ultimate authority to deprive his citizens of the goods and properties without due process. Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao, Hitler, Fidel Castro,
Trump.
They all did that. Show me a concrete example of Trump depriving citizens of the goods and properties without due process.
Are you kidding me?
Look
at immigration. Immigration
there is a process,
one.
for God's sake. Are you kidding me? I've been here for almost 10 years.
They just busted some people on the south side illegally.
But you say immigration.
Immigration.
Who are you referring to?
Immigration. I'm referring to not African Americans. I'm referring to Hispanics. Everybody thinks it's Hispanics. I always say there's a play for the underlay here. Because wait. There's a play for the underlay that's been not even announced, but I keep on saying this on this show over and over again, why they put immigration as an issue now. Because blacks is on the rise. Minorities are on the rise, meaning blacks. People are coming. You're from what? Africa.
Yeah, Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast, right? There are more Africans coming to the States. And when they count on the census, that totals the African American, the blacks, up.
Yeah.
And whites decrease. Like when you say...
Well, what's your point?
My point is basically this. When it comes to immigration, who was at the borders? Africans was at the Mexican borders too. It was reported in the New York Times, U.S. Today.
Oh my God! So you're not relying on your New York Times to take your sources.
What you're saying is fake news?
The New York Times is not very accurate when they report the news. You know that.
Everybody can be inaccurate. I'm not saying.
But the point of journalism is to no. The point of journalism, regardless of your bias, is to still report the news accurately as possible. The New York Times has kind of veered away from that procedure.
How?
Recently, even with Kavanaugh, when they say that he showed his genitals, he took his genitals and gave it to the girl, like, they had to take that story away. You can Google it. You have to. They literally have to delete that story.
But those
because
are commentators. Those are different from
but
reporters.
you said New York
editors
Times.
are different from journalists.
But you said New York Times.
Okay,
and New York Times,
but
even
if
the
I
reporters.
was a host, wait.
Even
Just
the
let me finish
reporters-
this point.
Hold on. Even the reporters are not even reporting accurately. Now you are saying that Mr. Trump is a dictator. Please give me a concrete example. What law?
Not giving children. Separating their children from their parents.
What law President Trump has passed that actually show that he deprived people of the goods?
He's
and properties?
totally ignoring.
You said separating the kids, right?
Yeah.
Let's say.
Which brings me to my point. Hold on. Let me finish this point.
Well, let's say, Roman.
The 13th and the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment. Hold on. Known collectively as the Civil War Amendments, were designed to ensure equality for recently emancipated slaves. The 15th Amendment prohibited governments from denying U.S. citizens the right to vote and stuff. It goes on, but it's basically saying that, and I'm getting a hard rap, basically it's saying that when it comes to due process, he has ignored the rule of law. I want to get back. We're gonna have you back again on the.
I know I have to come back. We never finish our debates. You know that, but you still have not given me a concrete
immigration. Look it up.
Okay, Roman. This is what you said.
We have to go. Germinal, tell them where they get your book from.
The book is available on Amazon.com and also Booktable. There are more books that will be available at Booktable, so I will ask everyone to be a little patient for the availability of the book in stores. But for those who are already interested, they can definitely go on Amazon.com and get the book.
I'm not dodging your question. Thanks.
Yeah, you are dodging my question.
Thanks to
you're dodging my question.
Executive producer Wanda. You made me forget her name. Wanda. Thanks to Wanda Earl, who's behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week. Oh, by the way, the one and only in the hot seat. I hate to say this, but it's true.
You are the one that hot seat, my friend.
Hermine Hartman.
You are the one that hot seat.
Next week.
You're dodging my question.
I'm not dodging your
yes,
question.
Yes, you are.
Have a good week, everyone.
That's a good one. Yeah.